Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley, Bridges, Buckner, Coleman, Cutter, Danielson,
Excused.
Exum, Fields, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hanson, Hinrichsen, Jaquez Lewis, Kirkmeyer, Kolker, Liston, Lundeen, Marchman, Moreno, Mullica, Pelton B, Pelton R, Priola, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Simpson,
Excused.
Smallwood, Sullivan, Van Winkle, Will, Winter, Winter,
Come on in. We're going to say the
Excused.
pledge this morning. Come on in. All of it.
Zenzinger, Danielson, Winter. Mr. President,
Here. The morning roll call is 34 present, 0 absent, 1 excused. We have a quorum. I was thinking we would just skip the Pledge of Allegiance all of this week.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please join all of our friends in the lobby this morning as we say the pledge. I pledge allegiance. Thank you.
Approval of the journal, Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate Journal of Friday, March 31, 2023 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted. Senate Services.
April 3rd, 2023, correctly printed. Senate Bill 260 and 261, correctly engrossed. Senate Bill 2099, 157, 159, 160, 163, 180, 250, 257, and Senate Resolution 6, correctly re-engrossed. Senate Bill 175, correctly revised. House Bills 1015, 1022, and 1062, correctly re-revised. House Bill 1099, 1126, and 1185.
Message from the House.
April 3rd, 2023, Mr. President, the House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the reviser of statute Senate Bills 188 and 189, amended as printed in House Journal March 31st, 2023. The House has passed on third reading and returns herewith Senate Bill 190.
Message from the reviser.
April 3rd, 2023, we herewith transmit without comment as amended Senate Bill 188 and 189.
Signing of bills.
March 31st, 2023, the President has signed House Bills 1001, 1004, 1031, 1037, 1093, 1116, 1117, 1156, and 1172.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate proceed out of order for moments of personal privileges. By the senators from Aurora, Woodland Park, and Pueblo.
The motion is to proceed out of order for moments of personal privilege. Aye. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will proceed out of order. Senator Fields.
Good morning, Mr. President and colleagues. We would like to request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are here to acknowledge that today is Prevention Child Abuse in Colorado. And it is something that we celebrate, or not really celebrate, but we acknowledge this every month in April. And I'm going to read the tribute to you. The Senate of the Colorado Legislature convened on the first regular session of the 74th General Assembly hereby recognizes Pinwheels for Prevention campaign, building together prevention in partnership supported by the Illuminate Colorado in recognition of April as National Child Abuse Prevention Week. Each of more than 1.2 million children in Colorado today deserve to be valued, deserve to be healthy and thriving. Children are our future employees, our leaders, our neighbors, and we shape the future of children in Colorado. Childhood trauma, including abuse and neglect, is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. We all have a role in ensuring that children have positive experiences and that families have the resources they need when they need them. We commend Illuminate Colorado, Kemp Foundation, Raise the Future, County Departments of Human Services and their Child Welfare Division, and the many other organizations participating in this campaign for their diligence in preventing the maltreatment of children in the state of Colorado. Today, we acknowledge April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month and urge all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating ourselves to the task of improving the quality of life for all children and families.
Senator Fields.
Mr. President, we have some folks here that I would like to stand and acknowledge, if you could please stand. These are the folks that are responsible in the state of Colorado for protecting the overall well-being of children in our state. Let's please acknowledge them this morning. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, today is Purple Up Day, where we recognize and celebrate children throughout our great state who are the children of service members. And I can tell you firsthand that military service is a sacrifice on the part of the service member, but it is a family participation, a family event. And so we have several outstanding young folks here who are here to witness American government in action, which is what their parents are fighting for and what they themselves are serving for. And I have a tribute that reads as follows. The Senate and House of Representatives convened in the first regular session of the 74th General Assembly hereby recognizes children of military families in celebration of Purple Up Day. Members of the Colorado State Legislature wish to recognize the sacrifices made by the children of military families on Purple Up Day. Children of military families face unique challenges, and we appreciate their strength and sacrifice as they support their enlisted family members at times during long periods of separation. The children of military families are directly impacted by the deployment of one or sometimes both parents on full-time duty status in military service, including members of the National Guard and Reserves on active duty orders. We acknowledge the role we play in supporting children of military families to help them be successful in life, educational pursuits, and community involvement while their parents are deployed. With April being the month of the military child, we encourage Coloradans to wear purple in recognition of the sacrifices made by military children on behalf of our family. I would also like to recognize Vince Guerrero from Pueblo for organizing this event annually, Vanessa Tranel of the Colorado State University Extension 4-H military specialist who played a key role in organizing this, and the Children and Youth Services staff here from Fort Carson, Peterson Space Force Base, Shriver Air Force Base, and Buckley Space Force Base. And just want to give one last message that Senate Committee Room 354 at 12:30, there will be a meet and greet. If you have the opportunity, please say hi to these outstanding young people who are giving of themselves and their parents to serve our country.
Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fellow senators, yeah, have a chair. We're good. Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. Mr. President, I request a moment of personal privilege, please.
Granted.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Every fall, since being in the legislature, I've had the honor of teaching a course in the Practical Government School on the legislative process to a small college in my district up in Teller County called Charis Bible College, and that class always comes in the spring as a follow-up to get a personal first-hand look at what we've been talking about in the class. So they are here today, and I'd just like to acknowledge and welcome the Practical Government School class of Charis Bible College, sitting over here to your right, my left. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Senate will stand in a brief recess to greet all of our guests. The Senate will come back to order. Third reading of bills. Consent calendar. Will the clerk please read the titles to all of the bills on the consent calendar?
Senate Bill 180, Senators Cutter and Baisley, Representatives Titone and Weinberg, concerning changes to the state's payroll system to codify current pay periods for state employees. House Bill 1062, Representative Morrow, Senator Henriksen, concerning the authority of a metropolitan district to levy a sales tax with voter approval for the purpose of providing parks or recreational facilities or programs. House Bill 1015, Representative Byrd, Senators Liston and Hansen, concerning the taxation of tobacco products. Senate Bill 157, Senators Coleman and Baisley, Representatives Martinez and Schrabini, concerning the continuation of the Offender Reentry Grant Program and in connection therewith implementing the recommendations in the Department of Regulatory Agencies 2022 Sunset Report. Senate Bill 159, Senators Henriksen and Pelton B., Representatives Bazenaker and Lindsay, concerning the continuation of the Colorado Food Systems Advisory Council and in connection therewith extending the sunset date by 3 years and making an appropriation. Senate Bill 160, Senators Fields and Winter F., Representative Mabry and Lynch, concerning the continuation of the Community Crime Victims Grant Program and in connection therewith implementing the recommendations of the 2022 Sunset Report on the Community Crime Victims Grant Program by the Department of Regulatory Agencies. Senate Bill 163, Senators Will and Mullica, Representatives Judah and Lynch, concerning the classification of certain employees of the Division of Parks and Wildlife who are certified by the Peace Officers Standards and Training Board as state troopers for the purpose of determining Public Employees Retirement Association service retirement eligibility and benefits, and in connection therewith making an appropriation. Senate Bill 250, Senators Mullica and Kirkmeyer, Representatives Byrd and Catlin, concerning a 2023-24 state fiscal year transfer from the Severance Tax Operational Fund to the Capital Construction Fund for use by state-supported institutions of higher education in energy-impacted counties, and in connection therewith making an appropriation. Senate Bill 257, Senators Bridges and Gardner, Representatives Titone and Bockenfield, concerning funding for auto theft prevention programs, and in connection therewith making an appropriation. House Bill 1022, Representatives Froelich and Weinberg, Senators Bridges and Rich, concerning registration of fleet vehicles that are part of rental vehicle fleets, and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of all the bills on the third reading consent calendar, which consists of Senate Bill 180, House Bill 1062, House Bill 1015, Senate Bill 157, Senate Bill 159, Senate Bill 160, Senate Bill 163, Senate Bill 250, Senate Bill 257, and House Bill 1022.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills? Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a rather compressed conversation on second reading last week, and so I wanted to rise and speak to Senate Bill 257 in particular, because over the course of this legislative session and during our SMART Act hearing earlier this year, we actually dug in to CATPA, the Colorado Auto Theft Prevention Authority. And at a time when statewide you have a more than 9 in 10 chance that if your vehicle is stolen, that no arrest will be made in your particular case. The statistics, I believe, are 92% of vehicles, when they are stolen, do not have an arrest made in the case. And the CATPA program, which has existed in statute for I believe this is the 20th year in existence, I think has left a lot to be desired in terms of its effectiveness as a program. And so recognizing that we are in an auto theft dire situation at the moment, recognizing that we are, in many respects, leading in the nation. And yet this prevention authority that has existed for over 20 years has not done anything to demonstrate that it is going to make any meaningful difference in Coloradans who experience auto thefts lives. I ask for a no vote on Senate Bill 257, respectfully.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did want to note for my colleagues, I know listed on here, it's just me, and you can't actually send a bill over to the House without House sponsors. So I wanted to make sure everyone knew. Senator Gardner is on this bill with me in the Senate, and Representatives Titone and Bockenfeld are the House sponsors here. And importantly, this bill expands the purpose of these grants to include programs to support victims of automobile theft and programs to increase awareness and outreach for on auto theft. It's actually remarkable how many people leave their cars running to warm it up in the winter, and that is just the perfect opportunity for folks to steal those cars. And letting people know that that is sort of one of the prime targets will be a great way to reduce auto theft on the front end as opposed to just increasing penalties on the back end. So ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 257 on the consent calendar. Thank you.
The motion is the passage. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am privileged to be on this bill with the senator from Greenwood Village. There probably is not a reasonably aware citizen in Colorado today that does not know that we're #1 in auto theft. This bill brings resources to bear on a serious problem. And as my co-prime sponsors noted, it adds things like victim support. One of the most difficult things about the auto theft issue and problem and being #1 is that each and every one of these vehicle thefts represents a real person like you, like me, like our neighbors, our family member, who wakes up one morning and finds their vehicle stolen, their catalytic converter stolen. And if you haven't had a close friend or family member say to you that, or call you and say, my car got stolen this morning, my car got stolen last night, then you're fortunate. We need to bring the resources to bear. That's what this bill does. Programs to support victims, programs to support technology enhancement. It's important to use the best of technology for what is a 21st century problem. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Gonzalez.
For my second 10 minutes, thank you, Mr. President. And honestly, if it was $5 million to victim support, then that would be a different policy, and I would support that. It is allowing this to be a potential allowable use of a whole host of other issues is not demonstrated over 20 years of evidence to not be an effective use of its spending. And so with that, again, thank you for your consideration. I ask for a no vote.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise in support of the bill, and I would return to a conversation we've had many times over the last several years in this chamber from this well that talked about, do we want to enforce the law or not? This is a bill that would actually take steps to help us enforce the law. We've backed in Colorado into a situation where law enforcement is essentially told by the culture and the policies passed through these chambers, don't enforce property crimes. Well, that's why we're #1 in the nation in auto thefts. If you're not enforcing the existing law, people will abuse that law. This bill is a threshold moment, potentially, where we say as a chamber, we actually do care about crime. We actually do care about victims and victims' rights, but in a way that would protect them from future offenses as opposed to just trying to backfill after something bad has happened. This is a bill that in minor ways, but I would argue material ways, moves us back into a place where we say the culture of Colorado is one of respect for the law. one of enforcement of the law, one that in fact protects all individuals before they become victims. And of course, we support people when tragically they do become victims as well. Mr. President, thank you. I urge colleagues your support of this bill.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, I support this bill, Senate Bill 257. My colleague from Denver did mention the importance of victim support program, and my other colleague also from El Paso County mentioned victim support program. This is like really, really important. Because when your car is stolen, that is your lifeline to get to work, to get your kids to school, to do so many things. And a lot of times we lose sight of the impact of that mom not having access to the vehicle. So for those of you who are going to be applying for grants and those kinds of things, be mindful about trying to restore those who have been harmed by auto theft. Because it is pretty traumatic when you don't have transportation to get to work, to earn the money that you need to be able to pay your bills. So please, let's make sure that we ensure that some of this money trickles down and provides victims the support they need to be able to move around. Thank you.
The motion is the passage of all of the bills in the third reading of bill's consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of the bills on the third reading of bill's consent calendar? Senator Beasley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on 3 of these bills. Those are House Bill 23-1062, House Bill 23-1015, and Senate Bill 23-163.
Senator Beasley will be recorded as a no vote on House Bills 1062 and 1015 and Senate Bill 163.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask to be recorded as a no vote on Senate Bill 257.
Senator Gonzalez will be recorded as a no vote on Senate Bill 257. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062.
The Minority Leader will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062. Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request to be a no vote on House Bill 1062 and Senate Bill 250.
Senator Van Winkle will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062 and Senate Bill 250. Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I wish to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062. Thank you.
Senator Liston will be recorded as a no on House Bill 1062. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1015.
Senator Pelton B will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1015. Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062.
Senator Kirkmeyer will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062.
Senator Pelton R will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062.
Senator Smallwood will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062. Senator Rich.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062.
Senator Rich will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062 as well.
Senator Gardner will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1062. With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 180 is passed. Co-sponsors. With a vote of 25 ayes, 9 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1062 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Jaquez Lewis, Will. Winter. Cutter. Zenzinger. Priola. With a vote of 32 ayes, 2 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1015 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Colker, Rodriguez, Janal. With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 157 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Roberts, Exum, Hanson, Majority Leader Moreno, Priola, Buckner, Winter, Cutter, Fields, Bridges, Gonzalez, Janal, Buckner, Zenzinger. Please have the president. With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 159 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Exum, Pelton R., Hanson, Gonzalez, Janal, Priola, Cutter, Winter, Buckner. Marchman. With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 160 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Roberts, Gonzalez, Janal, Colker, Jaquez Lewis, Majority Leader Moreno, Exum, Zenzinger, Marchman, Bridges, Sullivan, Henriksen, Cutter, Hanson, Buckner, Priola, Henriksen, Fields. With a vote of 33 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 163 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Roberts, Bridges, Liston, Priola, Winter, Cutter, Marchman, Henriksen, Zenzinger, Janal, Colker. With a vote of 33 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 250 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Roberts, Pelton B., Pelton R., Bridges, Sullivan, Priola, Fields, Cutter, Buckner, Majority Leader Moreno, Will, Hanson, Janal, Zenzinger, Rich, Liston, please have the president. With a vote of 33 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 257 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Malika, Roberts, Hanson, Pelton R., Pelton B., Kirkmeyer, Minority Leader Lundin, Baisley, Liston, Will, Van Winkle, Janal, Zenzinger, Henriksen, Winter, Cutter, Rich. Marchman. Buckner. With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1022 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Henriksen, Jaquez Lewis, Gardner, Winter, Cutter, third reading of bills, final passage. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 20?
Senate Bill 20, Senators Coleman, Representatives Judah and Weinberg, concerning the timely issuance of a certified death certificate.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 20 on third reading, final passage. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 20. Are there any no votes? Senators Roberts, Kirkmeyer, Liston, Pelton B., Smallwood, Pelton R., Van Winkle, Will, Baisley, Minority Leader Lundin, Gardner, with a vote of 23 ayes, 11 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 20 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Exum, Janal, Jaquez Lewis, Marchman, Colker, will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 99?
Senate Bill 99, Senators Zenzinger and Kirkmeyer, Representatives Kipp and Frisell, concerning funding for special education services and in connection therewith, making an appropriation.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 99 on third reading.
Is there any discussion? Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is a pretty historic day. Back in 2017, 2018 is when I first learned that the state of Colorado was not making good on its promises to children with disabilities. We were funding Tier B students at a 32% of what we were supposed to be funding our Tier B students. Over the past couple of years, we have added a little bit money. We've gotten it up to 47%, then we got it up to 54%, then we got it up to 72%. Today, members, we will actually be closing the gap so that we will be making good on our promises that we started back in 2006 with regard to funding special education students. By adding $40,203,671, we will finally close the gap 100% for Tier B funding for special education students. It has been a long time coming, and it's been a real pleasure working with members of the legislature in order to make this happen, including members of the School Finance Interim Committee, many of which are in this room, as well as the good senator from Weld. This is an important bill before you. I will let you know that every dollar that we invest in special education returns a dollar to general education. We get double the investment by just taking care of the students who are the most vulnerable and who deserve this level of funding. And with that, I ask for your yes vote.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a good bill. We're keeping our promise from 2006. I urge an aye vote.
See no further discussion. The motion is the passage of Senate Bill 99. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 99 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators
Good job.
Roberts, Malika, Exum, Pelton B, Pelton R, Will, Rich, Gardner, Liston, Janal, Bridges, Sullivan, Henriksen, Cutter, Winter, Coleman, Buckner, Priola, Marchman, Colker, Gonzalez, Majority Leader Moreno. Please have the president. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate proceed out of order for consideration of House amendments to Senate bills.
The motion is for the Senate to proceed out of order for the purposes of consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it, and the Senate will proceed out of order.
Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 170?
Senate Bill 170 by Senators Sullivan and Fenberg, Representatives Bacon and Weissman, concerning extreme risk protection orders and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 170.
Is there any discussion? Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick explanation of what the House did on Senate Bill 170. There were a number of amendments. A handful were very much technical or fixing small errors. But the ones that had real kind of policy substance in it, I would put in 3 categories. Number one, one of the amendments creates a hotline, essentially a resource for people who have questions about using the Extreme Risk Protection Order in Colorado, to get some information, to get some sort of general sense of how the process works, what types of criteria need to be met. And the purpose of this is to continue outreach and public education, be a resource for people who either have a loved one or somebody that they know that they work with that is struggling, and they have questions about if the Extreme Risk Protection Order process is one that is appropriate for that situation. There was also an amendment that clarified some of the privacy protections when it comes to healthcare workers, mental health professionals, when and if they are involved in filing an extreme risk protection order. And then lastly, the House appropriated money for the Judicial Department as well as the Department of Public Safety to implement the bill and the hotline that I mentioned.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is that the Senate concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 170. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 170.
The motion is to repassage of Senate Bill 170. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Gardner, Rich, Baisley, Will, Van Winkle, Pelton R., Pelton B., Liston, Kirkmeyer, Smallwood, Priola. With a vote of 22 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 170 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senators Marchman, Henriksen, Cutter, Gonzalez. I got you. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 168?
Senate Bill 168, Senators Huckus, Lewis, and Colker, Representatives Mabry and Parenti, concerning gun violence victims' access to the judicial system.
Senator Colker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate reject the House amendments to Senate Bill 168 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is that the Senate not concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 168 and that a conference committee be appointed. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Huckus Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 168 be given permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two houses.
The motion for the body is to grant permission to the conferees on the first Conference Committee on Senate Bill 168 to be given to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two houses. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and permission is granted. Would the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 83?
Senate Bill 83, Senators Winter F. and Simpson, Representatives Winter T. and Michelson Janae, concerning an expansion of a physician assistant's ability to practice and in connection therewith changing the relationship between a physician assistant and a physician or podiatrist from supervision to collaboration.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 83.
Is there any discussion? Senator Winter.
Thank you. This is additional requirements on PAs serving in an emergency setting, and we feel these are reasonable, and I encourage a yes vote.
Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. President, and credit to the sponsors on putting in the work, and obviously having some changes that we made here in the Senate, having this collaboration agreement be with a physician, and the changes that they made in the House, having it where this doesn't apply if it's in a level 1 or level 2 emergency room. But I just want the members here to know, in my opinion, it just doesn't go far enough, and to really make the changes and let you all know what those changes would be that I think are appropriate in the medical field. And obviously, we have level 3 and level 4 emergency rooms in our state. I think obviously if this is something that shouldn't apply in level 1s or level 2s. It also shouldn't apply in level 3s or level 4s. But members, we had a lengthy discussion as well in regards to the number of hours. And so in the bill currently, it allows for a physician assistant to change specialties with an arbitrary number of 3,000 hours. We know in medicine that there are different complexities in the different specialties of medicine, and that in some specialties there's a longer number of training hours, and in others there's less. And one of the changes that we worked on or tried to work on was having those hours go through the Board of Medicine, and making sure that we were treating each specialty with the attention that it deserves, and making sure that those hours are appropriate. Another area that we worked on that wasn't addressed was making sure that that collaboration agreement that the physician that it's with is in the same practice area as the physician assistant. And so to make sure that, that a PA that's practicing in oncology isn't necessarily having a collaboration agreement with a physician that's maybe in neurology, and they're completely different specialties. And if you're not in medicine, think about it this way. You have a mechanic that maybe specialized on working on electric cars, having a collaboration agreement with a mechanic that specializes on working on semi-truck diesels. I think that it's appropriate to want that collaboration agreement to be in the same specialty area, at least the realm of the same specialty area, and not having that in the bill I think is concerning. Not having the training requirements to change specialties in the same fashion that we have for other providers, I think is concerning. Appreciate the work that the sponsors did do, but I just don't think that for me specifically that it doesn't get there, and I'm going to ask for a no vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 83. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for final passage of Senate Bill 83.
The motion is a repassage of Senate Bill 83. Are there any no votes? Senators Mullica, Roberts, Liston, Kirkmeyer, Smallwood, Rich, Van Winkle. Mr. Minority Leader. With a vote of 26 ayes, 8 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 83 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 146?
Senate Bill 146, Senator Danielson, Representatives Leader, and English concerning updates to the Colorado State Apprenticeship Resource Directory.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 146.
Is there any discussion?
Just a brief description, just some small changes to what's included in the report around completion rates and some details on wages. And I urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 146. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 146.
The motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 146. Are there any no votes? Senators Smallwood, Rich, Baisley, Van Winkle, Pelton R., Pelton B., Will, Baisley, I think we got you. Liston, Gardner, Kirkmeyer, Mr. Minority Leader. With a vote of 23 ayes, 11 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 146 is repassed. Co-sponsors, Senator Sullivan, would the clerk please, and Marchman. Would the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 169?
Senate Bill 169, Senators Mullica and Danielson, Representatives Duran and Hamrick, concerning increase in the legal age to purchase a firearm to 21 years of age with limited exceptions.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adopt House amendments to Senate Bill 169.
Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, the motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 169. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 169.
The motion is a repassage of Senate Bill 169. Are there any no votes? Senators Smallwood, Rich, Baisley, Will, Van Winkle, Gardner, Mr. Minority Leader, Kirkmeyer, Pelton B., Pelton R., Liston, Roberts, Priola, Henriksen. With a vote of 20 ayes, 14 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 169 is repassed. Co-sponsors, Senator Sullivan, General orders, second reading of bills. Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, and Senator Bridges will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the coat rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title? Oh, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that House Bill 1025 lay over until tomorrow, Tuesday, April 4th.
The motion is for House Bill 1025 to lay over until tomorrow. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That bill will lay over. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 232?
Senate Bill 232, Senators Zenzinger and Kirkmeyer, Representatives Burton Sirota, concerning unemployment compensation and in connection therewith reducing employer premium rates, creating support surcharge rates, adjusting the allocations of employer premiums and support surcharge payments to the Unemployment Compensation Fund, the Employment Support Fund, the Employment and Training Technology Fund, and the Benefit Recovery Fund to comply with federal law in making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 23-232.
To the bill.
Thank you. Members, after more than 30 years of existence in Colorado, the U.S. Department of Labor informed the state that the structure of the ESF, so the Employment Support Fund, was out of conformity with federal law. This bill basically hopefully brings us into compliance. Changes within the bill will bring the fund into compliance, and to comply with Federal Unemployment Tax Act requirements, the bill reduces employer unemployment insurance premium rates by 10%, at least across all rates. The bill also goes forward to change caps on the amount of money in the ESF, that's the Employment Support Fund, at the end of any state fiscal year from an amount calculated based on a portion of the employer premium plus $17 million to a total of $32.5 million for fiscal year 23-24.
So after 30 years, the Fed's just decided. You guys haven't been in compliance this whole time. That's great. Is there any discussion? Oh, we do have more discussion. Senator Kirkmeyer.
Sure.
Some friendly banter.
Thank you. Let me just continue on here. The bill does expand, let's see. The bill changes the cap of the amount of money in the ESF at the end of any state fiscal year, as I already stated, and it will go up to $32.5 million in 23-24. The amount of money in the fund in excess of $32.5 million that would otherwise deposited in the ESF is instead diverted to the Unemployment Compensation Fund, commonly referred to as the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund, beginning the end of fiscal year 23-24, and each year thereafter, with the cap be adjusted annually in future fiscal years based on changes in average weekly earnings. Mr. Chair, I need a senatorial 5. We have a couple amendments that weren't ready yet.
Senatorial 5 sounds great.
Thank you.
Senator Gardner.
Are we back to order?
We're back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, after all these years, I'm still always mystified at the rules here in the Senate. Members?
You'll figure it out one day, Senator. I'm confident.
I know. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this bill is an important bill, but there are some nuances on definitions and language that were raised. There's a series of amendments to deal with that. And so at this time, I'm going to cause, because this makes me feel really powerful, I'm going to cause some amendments to appear at the desk.
Abracadabra. Hocus pocus actually comes from the Latin Mass. Here we go. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L001?
Amendment
Senator
L001.
Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L001.
To the amendment.
Thank you. Members, as I say, these are sort of technical language and clarification. This strikes the phrase amounts used to calculate and substitutes amounts included in the calculation of, which is very, very substantive, let me assure you.
Senator Zenzinger. to this
Thank you,
very
Mr. Chair.
substantive amendment.
Members, the Appropriations Committee was the committee of reference. Did we include the committee report? I don't think we ever moved the bill or the committee report. No, I moved the bill. I didn't
There
move
was
the
no,
committee report.
there was no committee report.
Okay. Interesting.
No, we did not.
Okay, so the Appropriations Committee was the committee of reference for this bill. And because we were the committee of reference, we take testimony, just like an ordinary committee of reference. We received testimony from some community members about this bill, and so they offered up some recommended changes. This is a bill that was supposed to run with the budget package, but we held it back so that we could continue meeting with our stakeholders and review the suggested amendments. This is one of those amendments that we felt was appropriate. As you heard the good senator from El Paso mention, it's just another way of saying the same thing, but we feel like the language is a little bit more precise, and so we ask for your aye vote for this amendment.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Senator Lundeen.
No.
Oh, there is no further discussion. Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of L001. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. I hope the feds are happy with this one. Next up, there is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L002?
Amendment L002 by Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L002.
To the amendment.
Thank you. And once again, as with L001, there were some questions raised about proper description of programs, and so this strikes the word notes and adds notes as permitted by the Federal American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, Public Law 117-2, comma, as the act may be subsequently amended, comma, and by any other applicable federal law. That makes it really clear what we're talking about, and so it's very important, and I ask for an aye vote.
Seems extraordinarily important. Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a friendly amendment. I urge aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of L002. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. L002 is adopted. There is an amendment approaching the desk, coming near the desk. And now at the desk, will the clerk please read L005?
Amendment L005 by Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L005.
To the amendment.
Thank you. Members, L005 is more substantive in that it repeals Section 6 of the amendment, or of the bill itself. This is important because this bill involves the Employee Support Fund, and there are limitations in federal law about what can be used. Our current law is a bit more expansive, both than I think federal law would allow, as well as there being things outside of employee support that are being pulled in to use this money, and we want to limit that. So it's very important, and I ask for an aye vote on L005.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this is also a friendly amendment. This suggestion came to us by the Department of Labor and Employment. They provided us with feedback that we did not need to do this appropriation and these adjustments to the 2023 long bill through this particular fund. We can do this through general fund, and so therefore we agreed with the department that it was an appropriate move in order to strike this section, and we would ask for your yes vote.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much. In my tradition of seeking to be candid at all times, the good senator, maybe the best senator from El Paso County, it depends on the day, I suppose, suggested that the law without this amendment is a bit more expansive than federal law requires. Let me translate that into direct language. The ESF had become a piggy bank that was being used for any number of inappropriate, my opinion, purposes. This amendment would limit that and bring it back into alignment with what it should, in fact, be doing. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I stand in support of Amendment L003, I think it is.
Senator Gardner, and it's 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, this is one of those instances where the other really best senator from El Paso County is less tactful than the less than good senator from El Paso County. But this is true, that the fund was being utilized in ways that were not consistent with the way the Employee Support Fund should be utilized, and that is primarily in support of the administrative costs of running the fund. So we ask for an aye vote. As the good senator from Arvada says, this is a friendly amendment. I like to think that all of my amendments are friendly.
Well, you may be very friendly. I'm not sure all the amendments are, but this one we are on. All those in favor of L005, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. L005 is adopted. Weird no. Is there any further discussion of Senate Bill 232?
You're going to do your last amendment?
Senatorial 5. Mr. Minority Leader. Sorry, Majority Leader.
Thank you,
Minority Leader
Mr.
is out
Chair.
of the building.
I move Senate Bill 232 lay over to the end of the calendar.
Motion is to lay over 232 to the end of the calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That bill will lay over. Will the clerk please read the title of the Senate Bill 178?
Senate Bill 178, Senators Hawkes, Lewis, and Will, Representatives McCormick and Lindsay, concerning removing barriers to waterwise landscaping in common interest communities.
Senator Hawkes Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 178 and the accompanying Local Government and Housing Committee report.
Is there any discussion of the local gov report?
Well, I can tell you what happened
Please
in that,
do
in
so,
that
Senator
said
Hawkes.
committee. Mr. Chair, we had two amendments, L004, which basically talked about reasonable substitutions for plants and in pre-planned garden designs. We also did some cleanup language around fire buffers. And then L007 clarified that the HOA does have aesthetic powers that would apply to any vegetable gardens.
Sounds delicious. Seeing no further discussion of the local gov committee report, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That report is adopted. To the bill. Oh, there's an amendment coming to the desk.
I'll do mine.
Moving closer. I feel there's an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L008?
Amendment L008
Senator
by
Hawkes Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L008 to Senate Bill 178.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment was a response to working with our HOAs in our state. It reduces the liability for the HOAs who are not compliant, but we believe most HOAs are very interested in saving money. So we are definitely running this amendment to help them out.
Is there any further discussion of L008? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L008. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That amendment is adopted. To the bill, any discussion? Oh, we got another one coming our way.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hold on just one second. Will the clerk please read Amendment L009?
Amendment L009 by Senator
Will.
Will, amend printed will.
Go ahead, Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L009.
To the amendment.
So what this amendment does is there's, prior to this, there was precipitation harvesting pilot projects. This isn't a rain barrel thing. This is just about parking lots and different things with precipitation. What this does, it repeals effective July 1 of 2026. But what this amendment does is this repeal doesn't affect any otherwise or preclude any water courts from adjudicating an application for an augmentation plan that's filed prior to this. So it protects the pilot program of the Colorado Water Conservation Board, some of them that they've approved. So we're support of this amendment.
An amendment not for rain barrels. Excellent. Any
Not
further
for rain
discussion of L009? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L009. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. L009 is adopted. I don't feel any other amendments coming our way. To the bill, 178. Senator Hawkes Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's such a privilege to co-prime this bill with my colleague because we're all concerned about conserving water. And the one thing that this bill does that I think is really fantastic is that it addresses what homeowners can do in single-family homes when they're in an HOA, how they can conserve water. This allows them the flexibility to plant xeriscape plants that will conserve water. It helps us with our mega drought, 2 decades that we're into this mega drought. It also helps us with the great extinction of our birds and our insects. So this will help us save water, and I'm really hoping that everyone will get behind this bill.
Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I mean, this doesn't cure all of Colorado's water water woes, obviously, but it is a bill and a step in the right direction, a small bite out of the apple to save water. It's a good one. You know, the front page of the Denver Post talked about it, about the xeriscaping and how to save water. And this is just a good bill. It's a small step, but it's a step in the right direction. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Well, if the Denver Post says yes. Senator Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be so remiss if I didn't thank one of our wonderful leaders on water conservation in the chamber, which is Mr. Max Nardo. Thank you so much for helping us with this, Max.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Oh, we got some more conversation. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had conversations around vegetable gardens and stuff. What I heard on those amendments didn't address that, but is that addressed?
Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion of Senate Bill 178, question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 178. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title of the Senate Bill 232?
Senate Bill 232, Senators Zenzinger and Kirkmeyer, Representatives Byrd and Sirota, concerning unemployment compensation and in connection therewith reducing employer premium rates, creating support surcharge rates, adjusting the allocations of employer premiums and support surcharge payments to the Unemployment Compensation Fund, the Employment Support Fund, the Employment and Training Technology Fund, and the Benefit Recovery Fund to comply with federal law and making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 23232.
To the bill. Oh, there is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L006?
Amendment L006 by Senators
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L006.
To the amendment, Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, members, basically this amendment deletes, I'm just making sure here, deletes section 6 of the bill. And the reason for that is, again, as mentioned already previously, the ESF fund kind of has expanded beyond where it needs to be, and this just cleans that up.
Senator Zenzinger.
And members, we apologize. We passed an amendment earlier that does do this already, but it was combined with another topic, and we needed these things to ride separately. So this takes one half of the amendment that you already passed, and we are asking for a yes vote on this friendly amendment.
Is there any further discussion of Amendment L006? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L006. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That amendment is adopted. Will the clerk please read L007?
Amendment L007 by Senator Gardner, amend printed bill page.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L007.
To the amendment.
Thank you. Well, members, what this does is if you go to page 11, line 15 of the bill, that provision is talking about permissible uses of the Employment Support Fund. And that paragraph says a permissible use is to fund labor standards, labor relations, and the Colorado Works grievance procedure under the provisions of Articles 1, 6, 2, 9, 12, 13, et cetera. That will remain, however, this amendment, L07, repeals that as a permissible use of the fund effective June 30th, 2025. This is important, members, because this is the robbing the piggy bank, as the good and even better senator from Monument talks about. So this is the core. We have split this so that people who weren't satisfied with doing all of them together can vote on this, whether or not you want your piggy bank robbed or not. So I ask for an aye vote on L007.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this is one of those things where as Joint Budget Committee members, we kind of get caught in a little catch here. The Department of Labor sent us a letter, and we were able to meet with the Department of Labor. They have extreme opposition to the use of the fund. This amendment would actually clear it up and fix what the Department of Labor is extremely opposed to. However, though, as JBC, we need to be able to have had the opportunity to speak with all 6 members, haven't had the opportunity to really work it through and make sure that we have everyone on board. So while I like this amendment, and I would just point out to you that the Department of Labor likes this amendment as well, and I will just read from the letter that we received from them. The department wishes to express extreme opposition to the use of the fund. And they go on to say that the ESF has long operated parallel to Colorado's unemployment insurance system, funding both UI administration and other key CDL, Colorado Department of Labor and Employment functions. It talks about while the intent of the Employment Support Fund has since been expanded, its original purpose was to fund local workforce development activities, workforce labor exchange/business services, and fill gaps in federal funding for UI administration. The Employment Support Fund has traditionally been the only state source for workforce development funding going to our workforce center programs, and it's their mission to see more of these funds in the hands of local workforce boards to invest in activities that address their local workforce shortages. So again, because we received this a little bit late in the process, I just wanted to express that the department, the Governor's Department of Labor and Employment, probably in all reality is in support of this amendment. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? No, a division has been called.
The atmosphere here is so divisive. Should they? Such a divisive atmosphere.
Is everybody here? Tell me when to go, Rich. John, tell me when to go. All those in the chamber not entitled, let me start again. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. The motion is the adoption of L007. All those in favor, please stand and remain standing without moving around the chamber until the count is complete. Please be seated. All those those opposed, please stand and remain standing without moving around the chamber until the count is complete. The amendment is adopted. Is there any further discussion of Senate Bill 232? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 232. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That bill is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 178 is amended. Senate Bill 232 is amended, passed on second reading and ordered, engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1025 laid over until April 4th, 2023, and retaining its place on the calendar.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I expect some cows and move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Cow Amendment 1 to the committee of the whole report?
Cow Amendment 001 to Senate Bill 232.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I encourage a yes vote on Cow 1. As we were debating Senate Bill 232 a moment ago, we had an amendment that combined two concepts together. And I came up and said, please vote for this amendment, it's great. And then I found out later that it was combining two concepts together, one half of which I, as a JBC member on a JBC agreed upon bill, could not support. And so what we did is we ran those two concepts separately from one another. And so what this cow does is it strikes Amendment 5, which had those two concepts put together. I know it's complicated, but it's part of our JBC process. We stay committed to our bills to the bitter end. And so I would move, I already did. And I will move Cow Amendment 1 and encourage your aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I was trying to decide whether to call this Cow Amendment a friendly amendment or a necessary amendment. You know, sometimes you have people in your life that aren't so friendly, but they're necessary, and sometimes you have unfriendly people that are unnecessary. And, you know, I think this is probably not terribly friendly and not terribly necessary, but at the same time, I really do urge an aye vote because it'll keep the record clean. And so that would be as good a motivation as any here.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I believe that this cow is utterly important, so please vote aye.
Question before the body is the adoption of Cow Amendment 1. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, that amendment is adopted. The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 178 is amended. Senate Bill 232 is amended, passed in second reading, order engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1025 laid over until April 4th and retaining its place on the calendar. The following senators are appointed as members of the First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 168. Senator Jaquez Lewis will be the chair, and Senators Kolker and Gardner will be members. Announcements. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, the Senate Judiciary Committee will be meeting at 1:30 in the Old Supreme Court, and we will be hearing the bills as listed on the calendar in the order printed on the calendar. Thank you.
Senator Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an announcement. Senate Education Committee will be meeting at 1:30 in room 357. We're hearing Senate Bill 202, Senate Bill 205, and we have 2 appointments.
Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's Tuesday morning, tomorrow morning. Time for our weekly Bible study at 7:15 down in room 109. Come get some breakfast and then we dig into the Word.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick announcement, everyone. Now listen up. I am still soliciting and gathering members for the We Could Be Done Today caucus and looking for suggestions on fun things that we might do to encourage the notion that we could be done today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further announcements. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seeing no further announcements, I move that the Senate recess until 1 p.m. today. Colleagues, you do not need to return. We're just reading bills across the desk.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will recess until 1 p.m. today.